Hey everyone, so excited you are here for another podcast episode of the Radical Care for Christian Counselors podcast. And I always say at the beginning of every episode, yes, even if you are not a Christian counselor, but especially if you are, but even if you're not a pastoral care leader or a coach or somebody that's actively in the role of caring well for others, all of us have communities, all of us have places where we care for other people, right? All of us have people in our lives that want us to care well for them. So, really, these podcasts and resources can be used for everyone. But what I primarily do in my coaching, I work specifically with Christian counselors, pastoral care leaders, mental health professionals, coaches, anyone that is really exhausted with feeling isolated and overwhelmed. Although they feel called in their calling, they really are questioning, okay, how do I do this well? And how can I do this in a way that benefits me and my family and everyone well too? And so, with that being said, I help them experience transformational, deep rooted groups where they can feel seen, soothed, safe, and secure every single week that we connect together. And then I give them the tools and the resources and community to actually launch their own groups, whether it's a peer to peer meeting with somebody on a weekly basis, or whether it's a counseling group or a coaching group or a group for their Bible study where they can really feel seen and known and understood and really connect with God at deeper level. So if that interests you at all, we are in a great place. We would love to have you. You can visit bethanyboring.com, which is my splash page, my links to everything going on with Step Out and Thrive, and we would love to have you. And this summer, we're doing something special. We're opening up the community at the free tier, the free level part for just anyone that wants to follow these podcasts. All of this is going to be dumped into that community because these two resources that we're talking about, the interactive appreciation and then the Emmanuel journaling, are two things that really I continue to do, and I know they've changed people's lives. And so I really did want to use this summer as an opportunity to invite you along to the journey. So if you would love to be a part of that, visit the splash page and that'll get you connected to where you need to go. Without further ado, today we're covering the part two of what it really looks like to practice interactive appreciation interactively. The reason it's called interactive is, yes, you're interacting with God, you're interacting with yourself. But then the second part is you're interacting with somebody else, whether it's one person, whether it's a small group of people. We talked about last week about how we enter into this practice. We allow other people, we kind of guide other people through that. And so, if you really want to check this out, I would encourage you to at least go back one episode. If not, go back to this whole series, but definitely one episode so that you can really understand, okay, how do I guide people through this? How do I even introduce this to someone first? Next week, we'll do an example. Don't skip ahead. If you landed on this one and next week is already there, don't you skip ahead. Stay here because I want you to practice when God leads you, just to practice. Don't refer to the example as what this should exactly look like. Because I tell people the more and more we practice it, the more God really leads us and to do things that really work within our group or work within our environment that we're in. For instance, I do this practice with my kids. I throw Oreo cookies on the table and we practice this. Now, is that part of the example where you have to have food? No. But if I gave that to you guys as an example, all you guys would grab food and try to do it that way. We don't have to do it that way. Okay. So that's why I'm really careful at giving examples first. I want you guys to just kind of experience it on your own, and then we'll prove an example for the next episode. Now, you're getting ready to share. Everybody's had their moment with God, and usually it's like, especially the first time doing this part feels kind of awkward because nobody knows what to expect. And so, you as a facilitator, you as the one who's introducing that, you lead. You get to lead because this is a time where they're learning from your example. And so, with that being said, you want to make sure that you're leading well with other people. Sorry if that went really close. My microphone keeps on being weird, so I want to make sure that you guys can hear me correctly. And it's nice that we can do this raw, because one thing I will mention, and people go, Bethany, why don't you go back and edit your episodes? I'm like, because I don't get to go back and edit my groups. We don't get to go back and edit our lives out. And so really, when you guys get to see this on the podcast, I don't want to edit anything out. I just want to be myself. And so I hope that's okay. There will be a couple little dupes every now and then, but that's life. And that's what we get to do, people. And I pride myself into being that authentic community. So with that being said, everybody's had their moment. You as a leader, or you as the one that's introducing this to the group, you are going to start with your story first. And so whatever it is that God has given you want to make sure that you include all the senses, because we talked about how that engages the entire brain, right? We talked about that when we get to the upper level of the brain, that we are feeling connected, that we are feeling seen, that we are feeling understood. So really, you are experiencing that, but you're offering everyone else to experience the story with you. And so the more that you've connected in that moment that God has given you, the more you can invite that into others to connect with. So I usually start like this. I'm like, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to practice just sharing our stories, what God gave us to one another. And by doing this, I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes, because I don't want to go over, like, I don't want to take over with my story. And I want to hear back from them, kind of what they're hearing and what they got and what they were able to connect with my story about. And so with that being said, I share. And by doing so, I would share, this is what happened. This is the moment. But then this is what I, again, see. That's what I saw in that moment. That's what I heard in that moment. That's what I smelled in that moment. That's what I tasted in that moment. This is what my body was doing. And this is what I felt inside at that moment. And you can even share the 3-word title that Jesus gave you for that moment, or any other details, but you really want to engage in that, because that helps everyone else engage with your story too. And that makes a safe environment, a seen environment, a connected environment for everyone that's sharing. And so when you're doing this, you're sharing, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's in people, face to face. You want to be face to face. You don't want to be like looking around. You don't want to be distracted. You want to give that person your full attention. You want to make sure that you're giving the full attention back. You're all together in that moment. And then after you share, after the 2 minutes are up, or after you get done sharing, you can ask the group, wow, did you notice any emotions that I shared? Or you can be, did you notice anything happen inside of you as I was sharing? Or you can, a really easy question is, do you have any questions? Do you have any curious questions? Again, we're not trying to fix. We're not trying to fix. We're not trying to say, well, didn't you mean? You can ask questions, curious questions like, wow, when God showed up in that way, has God showed up in that way any other time in your life that you noticed? That's a great question. Or if they didn't include a lot of feeling words like, wow, you said that impacted you in a huge way. What emotion do you think you were connecting with? What emotion did you notice? So any of those kind of curious questions. But also, if somebody connects, you don't want to go overboard on your story, but you can show like 30 seconds. Like, wow, that sounds like a time in my life where 30 seconds tops, you share, and then you go back to their story. Is that what you encountered? Or, wow, it's just really cool how both of our stories can connect and be so different, but yet connect on this. And this is what I'm walking away with. So again, you want to set like kind of a time limit. And that's the biggest thing that I've seen happen in these groups, is that somebody can relate to that person's story, and then they automatically just start sharing, and it takes the group completely off track. And so that is the one thing I'm like, yes, I want you to share your story. Yes, we do want to be connected, but also we want to give this person the light, because that person is sharing. This person is sharing, not you. We love you. You're amazing. You're important. We got you. But you can share in 30 seconds. And then when it becomes your turn, if you want to make that moment into an appreciation moment, we'll process it right here with you. Awesome. We'd love to be there. But, the more and more we practice, the more and more we realize, wow, we have tons of stories. And so you don't have time to process all of them. So choose the one that God's given you and stay in track with that. And so after you're done with that person, you go out, thank you for showing up for this group. Thank you. Or you, hey, I'm glad I got to show up with you guys. And then you go to the next person. And so you kind of follow that. And when everybody gets done sharing, and again, you might have to lead with the curious questions, you may have to lead with the answers, give everybody a chance to share if they want, however that works. And then at the end, sometimes I get like, it's really cool. Sometimes at the end, is I step back and I go, what did you notice God do among us as we practice that? Was there a theme that you noticed maybe that was there? Did you notice any common realm? Did you notice a flow that happened? And so sometimes I'll do that with my kids, and it's amazing what they can see. I'm like, I did not see that at all. And so some of it's humor, sometimes it's like mind blowing. But I've did this with some of my groups too. It just depends on where everybody's at. If this was really hard and challenging, that probably wouldn't be the best time to ask that question. Okay. And so just be aware. But I just want you to know you can do this with kids. You can do this with, I mean, you can small talk in the line at the grocery store and you don't have to use God. You can go, wow, have you experienced any joy? Like, is there a joy moment that you had in this last week that you can share with me? And here's one that I had. I mean, anybody can, and really, when you start sharing in a story like that and people can understand and connect with an emotion inside themselves, they're going to want to share as well. And you share that connection. That might be the only connection that person has all day. And you got to help them have that. So again, just get creative, practice both sides of this. And like I said, just even in that last example, it can look in so many different ways. So don't get tied down to just one way of doing it. Experience it. Start really easy. Don't take this to like a counseling environment. Please come to one of my groups and we'll work more onto that. If you want to try that, that's awesome. I would still come to one of my groups first. But that's just me, because I'm always leery about people doing this in professional settings without getting the proper training. But with your kids or with a youth group or with your family, Thanksgiving dinners have been amazing following this. You guys would not believe the stories that I got this past year when we practiced that with our small group and we challenged everybody to do this in a different form around their Thanksgiving table. You all, there were feuds that did not happen because they did this first. Okay, if that can make anybody else excited, that makes me excited. Okay, so if there's anything, just be aware of what you're doing. These are the two practices. If you missed last week, go find last week, or better yet, listen to the whole series. Would love to have you in the community to connect deeper with. Look at bethanyboring.com. Would love to hear back from you. Would love to see you in the community. So, with that all being said, dare to do more than just survive. Step out and thrive. Cannot wait to hear how you're using this tool this week. See you guys later. Bye.